Chen, what do you have for us today?
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm live from the CGTN Digital Newsroom. As always, I have a preview of what we'll be covering today on our website. Let's start with the latest episode of Ask China. CGTN anchor Liu Xing talked to Xu Hui, a major general and commandant from the National University of People's Liberation Army. They looked into China's defense policy, a topic that never fails to capture international attention. And earlier this week, CGTN reporter Zhou had an exclusive interview with Kenneth Falk, a member of the 13th National Committee of the CPPCC. The full interview is not available yet, but you can take a sneak peek in the clip that's up on our social media platforms. In the leaked video, Kenneth Falk gave his thoughts on if the development plan of the Greater Bay Area would harm the practice of one country, two systems. And our colleagues in the politics team have created a multimedia report, 2 sessions in graphics. They broke down this year's report from the Supreme People's Procuratorate and the Supreme People's Court. The work reports of the SPP and SPC might sound dry and difficult to read, but we have visualized the numbers and put them into infographics, making them clear and easy to understand. Now, Qiang will give a preview of our TV coverage today.
Thank you, Chen, and here's what you don't want to miss on our TV channel. Earlier this morning, we had a big team covering the conclusion of the annual session of Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, the country's top political advisory body. CGTN's Mike Walter, Tian Wei, Zhou Yun, Liu Yang, and Wuchichi Okranko were live from different locations in Beijing for a 360-degree view of the event. Now you can catch a replay of that on the CGTN mobile app or website. And also on CGTN's Africa's Beatrice Marshall tells us in CGTN Observes if China is pushing Africa into a debt trap, a common accusation against China's Belt and Road Initiative, which has jump-started massive infrastructure projects in many countries. On today's China 24, we will also look at how and why China has become a popular destination for foreign students, only second to the US in numbers of enrollment size. And we'll also bring you the figures and expert analysis. Jonathan?
So many interesting, juicy stories there. Thanks so much, Ying Chao and Liu Chen. What other specials are you working on there?
The CGTN political team took the SPC and SPP work reports from Tuesday and looked into all the keywords used, then cross-referenced them with the legal documents from 1918 to 2018 to make a report titled What China Judges. It traces the changing pattern of China's rule of law over nearly 40 years. And about that, I would like to share 3 fun facts with you. Fact 1. Rule of law first became a key phrase for all work reports in 2001, and since then it has been the most used phrase. Fact 2. In the SPP work reports, work-related crime has been one of the most used phrases since 1997. It has appeared 335 times, showing just how determined the SPP is in fighting against corruption in the government. Fact 3. Terms like cracking down on criminal activities are being used less, while terms such as economic development, judicial justice, and safeguarding people's rights and interests are increasingly common, showing people's focus on increasing the quality of life in the country. If you want to learn more, check out the full article on our website. Now back to the TV studio. What do you have from the TV? Qiang.
Thanks, Chen. And here's some highlights from what we've just aired so far. CGTN reporter Wu Guoxiu brought us a story on the motion submitted by NPC deputies. This year, the number of proposals from lawmakers rose by more than half. They cover amending laws protecting the elderly, women and minors, and private data protection and pollution control. Now, during this morning's Global Business, we showed you how China is working to prevent gender discrimination in the job market, while an expert explained why the gender income gap is widening in this country, which is, according to her, partly due to the phenomenon that women are made to think that they don't suit the high-paying tech industry. And lastly, we explained China's judicial system, which includes the court and the Procuratorate, very different from those in the West. Jonathan?
Okay, thanks so much, Ying Chao. A lot of interesting topics. So let's bring back in our guest here in the studio, Professor Xia Liu, an assistant professor at Renmin University. And Liu Chen, I know you're up in our newsroom upstairs looking at what people are saying on social media. So what are some of the most frequently asked questions you're seeing online?
Thank you, Jonathan. Here I have two questions regarding China's anti-corruption campaign. Honey Parker from the US asked, do you feel that there is any corruption in the government? Is it a long-term plan of China's anti-corruption campaign?
So it's an interesting question we hear a lot, the anti-corruption campaign. It's a huge initiative by President Xi. An American viewer asked how much corruption is there in the Chinese government, and what is the long-term plan to fight it?
Well, according to data, a couple of questions are raised here. How many kind of officials at or above the ministerial kind of level were kind of charged? According to the official data, just 500 or something, more than 500 or something officials, they at or above the ministerial level were charged last year. So we can see this kind of scale and scope of the corruption. And that is not to say that Chinese government or Chinese official are corrupted or grafted. This is just to show a signal about the high pressure of the government on the graft of the kind of duty-related crime. Yeah.
And how effective do you think the campaign is against this corruption?
Well, this campaign is highly intensive, and this campaign is kind of regulative, not just from one time to the other time. No, it's kind of all year long and all time long. So all the officials and all the kind of cadres from a different level of government, they should be alert, and they should be kind of alerted on what they should do and what they're supposed to do according to the law, according to the regulation in the party, and also they should be working hard on the improvement of the livelihood, not just on their kind of performance in their work.
Without question, everyone's feeling the pressure in some ways from that. So Liu Chen, what else are they saying online?
And Ben Carson on Facebook asked, what makes this government's anti-corruption drives different from previous campaigns?
Okay, so that's another good question. This is the latest in a series of campaigns. So what makes this anti-corruption drive different from earlier ones?
Well, I would say the difference, the most important difference between this series campaign and the previous one are just their intensity and the kind of the scale and scope. And also, maybe in previous times, some of the officials, they may just committed some kind of very little mistake. Well, the superior would not tolerate this kind of. But here we focus on one keyword, that is zero tolerance. Zero tolerance is the key important kind of.
I think that's the big difference. Well, the tolerance.
In my opinion, that's the kind of zero tolerance is the key, most important difference between this campaign and the other.
And why do you say that?
Because zero tolerance is the signal about the central authority or the central committee's kind of their attitude toward the duty-related crimes, because they don't want the people to think that, okay, this official is kind of doing nothing, and they may do some good job, but they sometimes do some bad job. But here, the central authority would say that, okay, if you are the local official, you cannot do anything against the people's interest. You cannot do anything against the party's interest and the country's interest. So that's my understanding about the zero tolerance, and that's the key important here.
And very clear, I think, to a lot of people across this country. Okay, yes. Professor Xia Liu with Renmin University, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. And I also want to thank, of course, my colleagues Ying Chao and Liu Chen. Thanks so much for all of your perspective here. Global Watch and CGTN's new media team will continue bringing you the latest on China's annual political season. We'll have more stories on the two sessions after a short breather, and live coverage, as always, will be available on the CGTN app. Keep it here, there's still much more ahead.
Make Our Skies Blue Again was a campaign first proposed by Premier Li Keqiang in 2017 in a government work report. Premier Li vowed the government would be resolute in fighting air pollution. He said effective steps will be taken to tackle air pollution. To achieve this goal, he said China would work faster to address coal burning-related pollution. Premier Li said Beijing will strengthen control over exhaust emitted by motor vehicles. And he said the government strictly enforces environmental laws and regulations. Li Ganjie, the Minister of Environmental Protection, says progress has been made since the pollution control campaign was launched. He points to various figures to highlight this. For example, the average density of PM2.5 particle pollution in 338 major cities across the country dropped by 9.3% year-on-year. He says the improvement shows China is moving ahead in the right direction in pollution control, and China will carry on the fight against pollution resolutely and tirelessly.
Leaders from China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region have strongly defended their anti-terrorism policies. Officials with the Xinjiang delegation at the NPC rejected charges that Uyghur Muslims have been forced into what critics call detention centers. CGTN's Nathan King was at that press briefing.
A packed briefing Tuesday afternoon in Beijing. Xinjiang officials first focused on the rapid development of the region, its central position along China's Belt and Road Initiative, and the huge influx of tourists, now 150 million a year.